To the one that brought this hits the spot.
I have a question, Rabbi, based on our last session.
Oh.
Straight away.
Hit it.
So you said that the demons take the form of goats. Right?
I didn't say that. The Torah said it.
The Torah says that. There we go. So why is it that even for a second we consider goats kosher if there's a slight chance that one could be a demon? Surely they should not be kosher, just err on the side of caution. You don't want to eat it either.
Maybe that's a good example of just because something seems to me from my perspective that this shouldn't be okay, the Torah can say otherwise. I can make all sorts of references and inferences and based on this and this and this, and then I start living very funny lifestyle, maybe hiding away somewhere, living in a Faraday bag or something, but it's not necessarily true. If the Torah says something's going to be safe or good, then here's an indication that we are allowed to have goats. Goat milk is totally permitted in Geschmack, and definitely the preferred milk in my house. And yeah, let's go. Let's goat. Okay? So, what still needs to be looked into is what is this connection to the goats? That's a fascinating universe. And that, as was mentioned yesterday, that it's strange that in, I would say, kind of pop mythology, and definitely in certain cultures, that the Satan and the dark side was in the goat form. And that, it's obvious from here that makes sense. That's fascinating that they kind of went with that. Any other off-the-bat questions?
No, that's it.
I love off-the-bat questions.
Key thing
Josh
we
hit it.
established yesterday was that the demons are in the goat form, as written in the Torah. I wasn't here yesterday.
Yeah. Which is fascinating. It's explicit.
Explicitly says a demon is in the goat form.
Well, it explicitly says that do not sacrifice your sacrifices to the goats, which is really hinting to demons, as Rashi said. Everyone's worshiping the goats. Like, who would have thought,
And this isn't
No, it's a code word for something else, and that's what we started yesterday, what it means. So, we gave a few, Rashi said goats. We explained that the etymology of goats can be related to the etymology of like a storm, of something very intense, and that when a person would see such a thing, that their hair would stand up, which is also like the etymology of goats. And then we said that the Rambam, quoting the Ibn Ezra, said that when people that are a bit meshugane, which sound like, how do you translate meshugane? Meshugane, that's right. So they see them in the likeness of goats. So that's a fascinating thing. It's not a goat. It means when someone would see a demon, they would see it like in that type of form. Doesn't mean that they are, because you see goats and you're not a madman and they're just nice and they're kosher animals. But it means if someone would actually see a demon, they would have like a shapeshift. They would take a form of a goat. Yes?
Is there something to be said about the relationship between rams, goats, and lambs? Like, are they all part of the same family, but goats are...
They have different names.
In their behavior, maybe?
I'd be interested more, what are the differences, the characteristics, both on a physiological level. You speak to, within the taxonomy system, perhaps, what makes them different. I'd be fascinated to hear that. But here it's se'irim. Se'irim are different than an ayil or a kevis. So yes, there's differences. Okay, so that's where we left off yesterday. So now let's go on in the Ramban. Umilas oid, Torah shekach hay Yisrael oisim b'Mitzrayim. Now, let's go back to the original verse. The original verse in the Torah, in Vayikra, Yud Zayin. Now, by the way, why are we doing all this? All of this is because the Rambam is teaching us the 13 principles of core Jewish belief, fundamental Jewish belief, And we are learning the core fundamental belief of prophecy. And we explained the basic understanding of prophecy in the Rambam. Then we went into the Ramchal, into Derech Hashem, to understand how the nature of the soul works and where we get information from, which is going to lead us to the prophetic experience. In the meantime, though, we're describing how information in the dream time could come from other sources. And the Ramchal mentions that demons are one of those sources of information. They're going to be fake news, as we'll get deeper in. And now we're just going into a little bit what that means. So just that we're clear how we got to this place in the rabbit hole. Yes, Adam?
If a prophet interprets something, we said that they see things through mushrooms.
Yes.
If they interpret something that looks like an angel but is from the dark side, and they say it over because they interpret it as a good thing, are they considered a Navi Sheker?
So if they have true prophecy, it'll be 100% clear that it's prophecy, that it's not coming from a shade. It'll be 100% clear. It's when a person who doesn't have that clarity gets up there, and then he sees like all these Chevera, and then he thinks that the goat's all nice, It's so sweet. So that's where you need the discernment, and that's why we learn Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. That's why Gemara learning teaches you how to discern and how to think. Right, Avi? Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. Teaches you how to discern and not just be like, oh yeah, it's a dark alley. I'm sure everyone's friendly. It's great. You have to know how to discern, see what's going on. Maybe yes, maybe not. That's to be careful. You have to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain falls out of your head. I'm open-minded, but it didn't fall out, It's open. Yeah, Josh?
This is a foundational question, but we're in.
I love foundational questions. That's what it's all about.
How do we know that the Gemara is an authoritative source of interpretation of the Torah?
What a wonderful question. At Mount Sinai, we were given the Torah. Mm-hmm. That includes the written and the oral tradition. Right. Inside the written Torah, it's obvious that it comes with a secondary piece of information, right, as is illustrated by many places where it will describe things but not describe the entire picture, or do the ritual slaughtering, shechita, as I've shown you, but then I don't tell you where that is. So it's obvious that it comes with an oral tradition. Furthermore, you can't even read the written Torah without an oral tradition, because it doesn't tell you in the text what anything is. If I were to ask you, what's the first letter of the Torah?
Oh, the Torah?
Yeah.
Oh,
what's the first word of the Torah? Bereshit. What's the first letter? How do you know it's a base? Maybe it's an aleph. How do you know? How do you know it's a base, Danny? You know?
Because it's written down. It's Bereshit.
Who told you it's a base? Who told you it's a base? Did it say it in the Torah? By the way, this letter is a base. Doesn't tell you what it is. Maybe it's an aleph. Maybe it's a zayin. Maybe it's a tzadi. Maybe it's a kuru. How do you know? The answer is you have an oral tradition. Furthermore, even if you know the letters, you can't even read it. What's the first word of the Torah? Beresh. Maybe it's bu rashi a tu a. How do you know it's beresh? Maybe it's vireshis. There's no vowelization. It doesn't move. There's a necessitation for an oral transmission that goes along with it. So that's step one, is that they are coupled together, wed together, if you will. Then we have an unbroken transmission where we have many primary source material describing who my rabbis. Not only one line, but you'll have cross-referenced going this way on x-axis. So not just one y-axis going up, you have an x-axis where there's cross-reference. So if Rabbi X says my rabbi was Rabbi Y, so I'm Rabbi W, and I say, yeah, Rabbi X's rabbi was Rabbi Y. I could confirm that also. And handwritten going, and many, this is where it's impressive, not just the Y, the X-axes at each generation.
Is it true that that rabbis today can trace their lineage back to Moses?
Yes.
How is that possible, though?
Because it's an unbroken transmission, and we have, as, same thing, the Rambam, if you learn the Rambam from 1,000 years ago, it's pretty good, the Rambam traces everything back, and others traced it all back, and others cross-reference tracing it all back. In Pirkei Avos, we trace it back. It's very, very important to know we have an endless amount of primary source data tracing everything back. That's very, very substantive. And then for a person that they could trace in their family tree back to certain key people that have traced all the way back. So yes.
So literally just written records going all the way back to...
Yes.
Wow.
There's a rabbi here, Rabbi Peleach, and I respect that he does this very much. He has a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper he starts with Moses, and then he brings Moses a student, which is Yoshua, and he lists every single one of the rabbis, going down to the Vilna Gaon, and then the student of the Vilna Gaon, the Chaim of Volodyin, and going down step by step as it gets to Rav Soloveitchik, and it gets to Rav Herschel Schechter, and it gets to Rav Twersky, let's say, and then it gets to Rabbi Peleach. And then you put your name under that. Is that you're the next link in the chain, and you see it. One of my cousins back in Toronto, so he has on his wall all the rabbis from Moses till him, and it's not that many, by the way. Not that many, more than 100.
Those only Orthodox rabbis?
The ones on that list, yeah. Well, there was only Orthodox for basically all of history, until we made a little like, whoops. Okay, we're getting back on course. It's okay. So that transmission, and I'm open to a person interpreting Orthodox a little bit. If somebody says Shabbos is out, then you can't call that Orthodox. Mm-hmm. But I'm open to a person saying like, we're not talking about one specific. I'm open to discussion of what you consider Orthodox.
What's an example of something that's like generally like debatable?
That would be, there's nuances of things, certain nuances of things that we can get into. Maybe different roles, male, female, within the culture. But if somebody comes along and they say, oh, like Shabbos, that's out. Or that was just like metaphorical. So that's already, that's leaving. That's leaving. Or like kosher. I'm open to kosher discussions because of different standards. I'm open to that. But if a person says, yeah, like, kosher style. Exactly, Josh. It's kosher style. That's all you need to know. We put out grape juice and challah on a Friday night, but, that doesn't mean that it made the entire meal kosher, that you put out and you put a matzo ball in the soup or something, and just because you have some deli, and it's a kosher style deli. Can I see somebody who's responsible for making sure that the food is coming from kosher sources? So I'm open to those discussions, but not if somebody says that a BLT sandwich is somehow part of the kosher rubric. It's just not. It's more certain subtleties. But anything that would be going against the 613, and anything that would, within our entire, this series of shiurim, which is about the 13 core principles of the Rambam, nobody could say that, you know what, by the way, you know what the last of the principles are? That there's going to be a resurrection of the dead. I'm into everything about, the Torah. I don't know about the resurrection thing. I don't know about that. So that's a core principle. Now, I'm amazed of how many Jews, when I say that we believe in resurrection, are amazed. Really? I didn't learn that in my Reform, conservative. I didn't learn that. It was just never part of the story. But it's core, fundamental Jewish belief, core belief. And I always say, I'm happy to have, I know there's a lot of heat right now with Kanye, but he wants to talk about being a Jew or whatever's going on with him. But the first thing I would like to speak about is, do you know what the Jewish people are? We are the 13 core values as laid out by the Rambam. That is the core of who we are. So when we speak about what it means to really be a Jew, that is the defining feature of a Jew. And that's why it's important, is that we need to return to those key components, and then we'll really be Jewish. And if somebody wants to become a Jew, they're welcome to. We don't go out proselytizing, but if somebody wants, but they need to know that what you're accepting are these 13 core principles. And the 613, of course, mitzvahs, but the 13 core belief systems, which includes Mashiach, which includes that that we have a Torah from Sinai. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, $1 million questions.
These 13 key components, is this what's found in the Derek Hashem?
This is found in the Rambam. It comes from the Gemara. It was organized by the Rambam, and it is generally written at the end of the Shachris meditation in your local art scroll siddur. And therefore you can look it up there, and it's a good read. In fact, it's the best read.
What, the 13 principles?
The 13 core principles of Jewish belief. This is what defines us. This is how we identify. This is literally how we identify. If I want to know who I am, I'm made up of these 13 core principles. And you know what the first one is? Which is the main one?
Believing that God is your God is God.
That God exists. And He loves me.
My rabbi printed out the 13 principles and had me put it on my bedroom wall.
Amazing. That's it. You're making the mantra. This is great. My friends, we should be zoicha to be close to Hashem, to have tremendous love and connection, to love each other, take care of each other. We should have tremendous, powerful feelings of connection to Hashem and to feel connected in a positive way to humanity. We should see tremendous blessing come to the whole world. And we'll see that great times of peace are coming and blessing to all of humanity. We should see Mashiach Tzidkenu coming very, very soon. Bimhera v'yameinu. Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful day, my friends.